bright and early 2015 Mazda 6 pulling into the shop. I wonder what horn we're putting on this thing today. 228 pulled right off the shelf. There you go. There's the part number. Rocker model 228H. That's what we're going to be putting on the Mazda. All right, guys, air system's going to go right here next to the sub. We're going to get that air system pulled out, get it test fit in there, and then we're going to work on planing the rest of the install, running the power wires. It looks like on the front area here, we're going to take the bumper cover off, and we're going to get those two horns mounted somewhere back behind the front bumper. Alessio's got all of these little panel brackets and bolts pulled off of the front here. He's gonna grab those panel removal tools so we can get some of those clips out from underneath this front bumper cover, and then we're gonna plan the mounting of the horns. Thing hanging by a thread, almost there. There were some more bolts on the bottom he removed because we're gonna remove the whole entire front bumper cover to make sure that we're putting these horns in the absolute optimal placement for maximum honk output. Mr. Diaz made light work of that bumper cover. Got all the bolts off, all the hardware off. What? Oh, we got all the room to party under there. All right, guys, so on the passenger side front fender well, we have what is essentially going to be the perfect location for these two rocker horns. Right up there, we've got a factory bolt hole that horn inlet tab has ran through. There's one non-used mounting tab right there we're gonna use for the longer bell mounting tab. We're gonna just drill out that hole to be the correct inlet size of the horn. This is going to be the ideal location of install on this Mazda because having these horns, you know, that's 6 to 8 inches off the ground, pointed straight down, is gonna give you the maximum honk output of these horns. Like we said, we're gonna trim that panel down there at the bottom, so obviously the front of the horns are uncovered. Yeah, let's get right to it. So we've got a dead piece of plastic, essentially, right here underneath the headlight. It's currently stopping the horn from mounting up all the way into this hole over here. So we're just gonna take our snips, trim the plastic off the bottom of that piece so we can mount the horn flush in the hole. So we've got the inlet of the horn here. You're gonna wanna take that nut and washer off of the inlet of the horn because that hole that he just drilled out over there on that panel, you're gonna put this through that, then you'll put the flat washer over it, then you're gonna tighten the nut down over it, and then we need to find that fitting bag that was in the big box. There's gonna be 2 elbows in that box, 2 of the smaller 1/8 inch female to 5/16 push connect elbows. Remember, you're gonna get this tightened down in there, and then on the back side of it, you're gonna install the elbow fitting for the airline. So we got that down. We're gonna get it installed on there, and then we'll show you what it looks after. We got that hole drilled out. It did have a nut insert on the bottom of it. We just used a flathead screwdriver and a hammer to knock the nut off the backside so we could drill out that hole to the size we needed. All right, so we're gonna put this bell in there just so we can show you. Yep, so goes through like there. You're gonna put that hardware on the backside like we talked about. Now, this bottom mounting point right here, we don't have any metal panels down there at the bottom to mount that front stud. So we grabbed from our scrap pile just a little thing of drilled angle, slotted metal strap, whatever we're gonna call. We're just gonna cut a small section of this out, make an L bracket, and we're gonna bolt it right there to the bottom of that factory bolt, curve it a little bit so we can mount the front stud on the horn. All right, now that we have the horns fitted up, we're gonna paint the bracket before we put everything back together. We're gonna make a small outline here with a marker, and then we're gonna cut out that plastic guard on the bottom so the outlets of the horns are completely uncovered. Oh my, this is coming together. All right, so we cut out that bottom panel because, guys, we're getting maximum honk output of this system. Yeah, we'll put the other horn back on there, get the fittings run, airline out, 5/16 airline for the horns. We'll plumb the fittings to the valve, and we'll get on to it. All right, now the valve is directional, ladies and gentlemen. There are arrows that direct the flow on there. They're gonna point to the side that has the banjo in it. That's gonna be the outlet side of the valve. We've got the inlet fitting put on the back side there. Guys, the banjo itself, you don't have to ugga-dugga down on it because remember, that's a non-pressurized side of the valve. When it comes to mounting locations for the valve, we're gonna end up mounting the bracket itself right here to this bracket on the front bumper support bar, we're gonna call it. We're gonna take this valve bracket off the back side so we can mount it in place. Now, mind you, whenever you're thinking about a good install location for your air valve, you want to make sure you've got a good place somewhere close to ground the valve out itself. That's the black wire on the valve. You want a good chassis ground close to where you're going to put the valve, making sure that the inlet and outlet aren't interrupted on that valve. We're going to go back through this area here with the 1/2 inch, and we can come up the front with the 5/16 airline to go into the inlets of the horn. Guys, look at that air system. That's the MC2H 2-gallon air system with the medium duty compressor, pre-wired with a pressure switch. In the box, you've got the airline relocation for the filter. If you are doing this on a vehicle where you're going to be mounting the tank compressor combo kit on the outside of the vehicle, you're going to want to make sure that you relocate the air filter. For us, we're just going to mount the filter directly on the inlet of the compressor here. You're going to want to make sure you remove that red plug and the filter housing itself. It's got a bracket on it that would be used again if you're using the additional fittings and airline to mount this remotely in a, moisture-free, debris-free area if this was under the bed of a truck. But we're gonna take this bracket off here since we don't need it for this style of install on the car. And then the filter is just gonna screw directly in here to the front of the compressor. All right, also in that air system bag is gonna be the mounting hardware for the tank compressor combo kit itself. We'll get in here, guys. So you've got 4 of these little rubber grommets. You're gonna insert the rubber grommets, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then once the rubber grommet's inside, you'll put the brass insert in the center of it. Once it's in the hole, we'll show it all the way put together. And then you've got 2 sets of bolts. You've got a shorter one and a longer one. Depending on how thick of a surface or mounting point, you're gonna end up putting this on like a board or through a panel like we are on that spare tire cover in the trunk of the Mazda. All right, this Mazda's got a sub in it, so we're gonna pull the sub out and we're gonna mark up the holes for the air system on this spare tire cover board in that corner. And then we're gonna get that air system all mounted up and ready to get it wired and the airline plumbed to run up to the front where the air valve is. The valve is all mounted up in place. We cut that 5/16 equal lengths, even though the distance from here to the first horn is closer than from here to the inlet of the second horn. Whenever you're cutting the airline, you want to make sure all the pieces are the same length as the longest piece of 5/16 airline that you need. We got a chassis ground right there for the black wire, the ground wire on the valve. We took a little wire wheel to that little corner of the frame because we want the best ground connection as possible. We still got the positive wire back there exposed. We're going to get into wiring this system to the factory horn with an option of an on-off toggle switch. So toggle switch on, you honk your factory horn, honks a train horn. Factory switch off, you honk your factory horn, it honks just the factory horn, right? All right, so now we need to get that larger 1/2 inch airline that came with the kit. We're gonna plug it into the back supply fitting on the valve. We need to figure out where we're gonna run it up in the fender wells, down, out through the side, and back to the air system where it will be in the trunk. All right, guys, we went to the 12volt.com, pulled up the wiring schematic for the factory horns here on the Mazda, used that schematic to confirm that the factory horn is positively activated. So we're gonna pull the gray wire out of the kit, tap it into the wire, and then we're gonna run this into the inside of the car there so we can work on getting the activation of the valve, which we installed over there, hooked up with the factory vehicle horn. Yep, there we go. Yep. Beautiful, 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 guys. We got that power wire tucked back in there. All right, so you know that we got the valve wired. We went ahead and we connected the 1/2 inch airline just on the outside of the car here to make sure that we can pressure test this inlet fitting here on the air valve. We got our soapy water. We sprayed all along the inside of this here. We got no leaks on that. Just remember, guys, when you're putting a valve in a location like this where it's going to be covered by the bumper with, not the easiest access to it, you want to make sure you got no leaks on that valve so you're not trying to service that or chase that leak once the bumper is back on the car. All right, so we showed you that 1/2 inch airline here that we ran just on the outside of the car to get everything pressure tested first. Remember, guys, there's only 2 airlines in the kit, the smaller 5/16 and the bigger 1/2 inch. So we got the 1/2 inch on the car already. You can see how we tucked the 1/2-inch wire down back in behind there. We went up in the fender well, back down. You can see we ran into quite a bit of leaves as we ran it completely underneath the trim panel. There was a grommet in this farther back corner that we were able to pop out, put the 1/2-inch air line in there in the back, and then we got it connected to the air system here. All right, we've got the 1/2-inch air line ran right into the compression fitting here on the tank. All right, now we're gonna run this main power wire. That's the thicker 10-gauge red power wire that came in the wiring kit in the kit. You've also got the inline fuse holder that was in that universal bag. For this specific kit, you're gonna wanna use the 30-amp fuse. So we're gonna get the inline fuse holder put onto the positive terminal of the battery. We're gonna use those supplied connectors in the kit to connect the power wire to the inline fuse holder on the battery. And then we're gonna make our way through the firewall, down through the side of, like, you know, the little trim panels that are on here. We're gonna get all these trim panels popped off so we can run power back here. We'll get our relay all wired up. We'll show you how to wire the relay, how to connect the key power to it. And this system is gonna be just about ready to honk. All right, guys, so we got the wire all connected to the relay back here. We're gonna put the diagram on the screen, and I'm just gonna go over this real quickly. Pause the screen if you wanna look at the diagram. But we got the bottom wire, the positive wire, this red one here, comes from the compressor. That goes to pin 30. We've got the power wire that comes from the front in the engine bay, that inline fuse holder. We tuck this wire down all in the panels, all up into the front of the vehicle. Remember, that power wire is ran all the way up to the front with that inline fuse holder. Now, guys, we've got pin 86 on there. Pin 86 goes down back in here. That's the chassis mount ground. And then pin 85 on this side, we've got that running to our key power source in the fuse box. We'll go show you how we tapped into the key power source. So this system will only run and have power when the vehicle is on. All right, so we were able to figure out that the Fuse Audio 2 in the fuse box here using the 12volt.com is a key power on source. So we decided to use one of these T-taps here. This is gonna be that wire that runs all the way to the back as well. That's the key power on source, because this Audio 2 circuit only gets power when the vehicle is on. Now, you do get a supplied T-tap, Scotch lock, whatever you wanna call these, included in the universal wiring kit. So if you didn't wanna use that T-tap there to do it in the fuse box, you'd figure out where that wire is back behind the firewall, and then you'd use this to tap into that. And again, that's what you would use to supply the relay with that key power on source that it needs, so the compressor in this system will only run when the vehicle is on. Guys, the wiring is all done on the Mazda. We have this rocker 228H kit installed. We're gonna get the warehouse door opened up here. We're gonna turn the car on. We're gonna get this system pressured up. We're gonna get this horn honking, make sure everything on this system works as it should before we put the bumper back on, and consider this install done. All right, guys, car is on and running. You can hear that compressor starting to fill up back there. It's got a pressure switch in it. So once it gets to max pressure in the tank, that pressure switch is gonna tell the relay to cut the power off. Boom, we're done. And we'll give it a test honk before we put the bumper back on. Give it that test honk rip, which I know is gonna be extremely loud. Put the bumper back on, get this thing rolled outside, and give you guys some flyby test honks. We got this sucker aired up. This is that toggle switch we installed earlier, because right now we got the factory horn only. That ain't cutting it. Switch that bad boy on. Yeah. Wow. I cannot wait to hear this outside. Let's get that bumper on and let's get outside. Wow. The Mazda all buttoned back up, the bumper back on. We're gonna go get some fly-by honks of this extremely loud rocker horn setup on this Mazda. Guys, what a mind-blowing comparison of the stock horn versus our newly installed rocker 228H on this Mazda. Guys, you've seen it start to finish. You've seen how easy it is to install one of our rocker 228 kits on something like this Mazda. Don't wait, upgrade today, HornBlasters.com.